Hello there and welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast, where we talk about how to set up your own location-independent income or move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international backup plan and do all these things for very little money. I'm going to get right to the topic. A relatively, not common, but an objection I have seen in my content more than once goes something like this. Hey, Caleb, how can you possibly say the United States is collapsing or Europe or Canada is collapsing when millions of people are moving there every year? Millions of people all over the world do their best to get to these countries, to move to these countries. So that just doesn't make any sense. When you say they're collapsing, why would millions of people be moving to a collapsing country? That makes no sense. Okay, I will answer that question. Very simple, or at least relatively simple. As I've said many times, my content is designed for people who live in the Western world. People who live in the West, who are born and raised in the West, who are now getting screwed by the West. They live in a collapsing country, taxes go up every year, laws and regulations increase every year, freedoms decrease every year. People, particularly people in the United States, are getting more and more angry every year. People in the United States and Canada and some parts of Europe are getting more political and more politically divisive and hate each other in their own countries more every year. Crime rates are now going up all over the Western world, which I've already pointed out with very specific crime statistics at my Sovereign CEO YouTube channel. And on and on and on. It gets worse and worse and worse every year because these countries are indeed collapsing. They are. They're collapsing economically. They're collapsing culturally. They're collapsing fiscally and financially. They are collapsing. They're collapsing slowly, but every year they get worse. So why then are still millions or hundreds of thousands of people busting their asses to move to these countries? The question you have to ask yourself is, who are these people? So do you see millions upon millions upon millions of Americans trying to move to the UK? No, you don't. Do you see millions upon millions of Germans trying to move to the United States? No, you don't. Okay. Do you see millions upon millions upon millions or hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of Canadians trying to move to France? No. Who are moving to these countries? You already know the answer. The people, by and large, the vast majority of the people moving to these collapsing Western countries are people from third world countries or emerging market countries. So in the United States and Canada, it's people from Mexico, Central America, and parts of South America, okay? In the case of Europe, it is people from where? North Africa, or various places in Africa and some places in the Middle East. Third world countries or second world countries where they're moving north to Europe or moving north to the United States or Canada, okay? As I have said before, if you live in a third world shithole, then moving to a collapsing Western country is an improvement. That is an improvement, okay? If you live in the Congo and you move to the UK, which is completely collapsing, that is a dramatic increase in lifestyle, yes. And so if I was living in the Congo, or pick your favorite, third world country or emerging market country, Central America, parts of South America, certainly Africa, I would do the same thing. I would do my best to move to the United States or move to Europe, even though these countries are economically collapsing, because it would be certainly less bad. That's why I say on this channel and all my content, I don't say move to a good country. I don't say move to a great country. I say what? Move to a less bad country, because there are no good countries left anywhere in the world. There used to be many years ago, I've done other podcasts on that, where there used to be a few good countries. Now they all suck, but some suck more than others. So by moving from one really sucky country to a less sucky country, you will indeed improve your lifestyle. So if you live in the third world, right, and you make $1 a day and you can barely afford to eat, and you move to socialist, collapsing, welfare state infested Germany, where people are paying 40% of their taxes to support this massive welfare state from all these immigrants, that is better. You get all kinds of free stuff. You get to live in a cleaner city. Now, it's still dirty. Berlin's still dirty. Have you been to Berlin lately? It looks like Mexico City, all the graffiti and shit. And there's crime, but not nearly as much crime as there was in Africa, right? Right. One of the reasons that these countries are collapsing, these Western countries, the collapsing trifecta, United States, Canada, and Europe, particularly Western Europe, is collapsing is because, particularly in Europe, the overabundance of immigration that is maxing out and weighing down their welfare state programs. That's one of the reasons they're collapsing. So if you were born and raised in Germany, you know, if you're a German, you know how much worse it's gotten in the last 20 years. If you were born and raised in the United States, you know, you've seen it happen. I certainly did when I was there. I was born and raised in the United States, I was born in the 70s, lived in the United States up until 2021. You saw it get worse and worse and worse every decade starting in around the 90s, right? Right. So for you as the Westerner, it gets worse and worse every year. But if you're a third worlder and you go from the third world to the collapsing Western world, it is an improvement. That's why people are moving to these collapsing countries. These are not Westerners moving to other Western countries. A few people do that, but not much. The vast majority, and if you don't believe me, please Google this yourself and look up your own statistics. The vast majority of the people moving to these collapsing Western nations, which are collapsing, are people from second and third world countries. Period. End of story. That's the facts. I'm sorry, that's the case. So let's go back to my content. When I'm saying get the fuck out of the collapsing United States, move the fuck out of Canada, get the fuck out of Europe, am I talking to an African who just came from the bush and just got finally clawed his way and is now in Germany and is living a less bad life in Germany? No, I'm not talking to him. For the second time in this podcast and the 10,000th time in my content and my advice is geared toward Westerners, people who are born and raised in the West and are seeing it collapse before their very eyes and are living lifestyles that are worse and worse every year, regardless of who they vote for. So my content is not geared toward the second or third worlder who wants to live a slightly less bad life by moving to a collapsing quasi-socialist Western country. As a matter of fact, I get emails, not often, but I get them. I get emails from guys saying, hey, Caleb, I live in, this horrible shithole country. And they'll say it. I'm not calling them a shithole. They're calling their own country a shithole. I live in this horrible country, and they'll name some, African nation or Central American nation, sometimes Eastern European nation, what have you. They'll name the country and they'll say it's horrible here. It's terrible, crime and money. It's awful. I want to get the fuck out. I want to move to the UK. I want to move to Western Europe. I want to move to Canada, United States. But you say I shouldn't move there. I'm all confused. And what I tell them is I'm honest, dude, I'm not talking to you. I say, yes, if you are a third worlder and you want to better your life, yes, by all means, go ahead and move to one of these collapsing Western nations that are less bad than your shithole country, and go ahead and get a bunch of free stuff from their welfare states being supported and paid by these hardworking Westerners who are paying 30, 40, 50, 60% in some cases to support people like you. Go ahead. I would do the same thing, but I'm not talking to you. That's not who my content is for. It's not. It's for the Westerner. So yes, you can have a scenario, and you certainly do, where you have collapsing countries that will collapse in our lifetime, that have serious problems that are going to get worse, and are indeed collapsing, yet millions or hundreds of thousands of people from third world countries are moving to these collapsing nations because it's less bad to live in these collapsing nations than it does to live in a third world shithole. Yes, and that's the answer to the question. When you say things like, well, that doesn't make sense that people would want to move to these countries all over the world. And sometimes people will say it angrily. Oh yeah, America's collapsing. That's why everyone in the world wants to move to America. Everyone in the third and second world want to move to America. I'm going to say this again. Do you see shitloads, millions of Europeans dying to move to the United States? No, you fucking don't. They don't want to move to the US because they know it sucks over there too. Same thing with Americans in Europe. Do you see millions of Americans dying to move to Germany or the UK or France? It does happen, but statistically, these numbers are very small. In terms of the West, where these people are moving to? In terms of moving out of the West, they're moving back to countries that are emerging markets like Paraguay. One of the biggest sources of new subscribers to my content come through my Paraguay YouTube videos on getting residency in Paraguay. Those videos are really popular. You know why? These are Westerners trying to get the fuck out of the collapsing West, and they're going to places that are actually lower on the economic scale to live a better life. Moreover, and I've said this before, if you live in the collapsing West and want to get out of the collapsing West, but you want to maintain that Western lifestyle, you know where you can move to? Here in Dubai. Every day in Dubai, not every day, regularly in Dubai when I'm out talking to people, it's more new people coming into Dubai from collapsing Western nations. Eastern European nations, Western European nations. Now, of course, you have Russians from the war and Ukrainians from the war pouring into Dubai. You've got amazingly more Americans, which I didn't think would happen because Americans have successfully brainwashed themselves into thinking that anything Middle Eastern is horrible and evil and totalitarian. So there aren't a lot of Americans in Dubai, but we're having more and more Americans now coming to Dubai. We're meeting more and more. In our neighborhood right here, where Pink Firefly live, we just made friends with an American couple right down the street. We're shocked. More and more Americans are getting the fuck out of America and moving to nations that are non-Western, but still first world, like Dubai, which has infrastructure superior to the United States with a lot less tax, as in zero taxes. I pay zero taxes here in Dubai, where I used to pay a lot more in the United States, just like you guys. Now, again, I always throw this out there. Dubai is not perfect. Dubai is not for everyone. Don't use Dubai as the only place to move to. There are many other places. There are many places in Asia that are certainly first world that you could move to. So when you are a first worlder trying to get out of the Western world, moving to another first world country, you do have some options. Or you can move to the developing market, places like Paraguay, or you can move to places like Panama. Okay, not my favorite anymore, but that's a viable option. As a matter of fact, speaking of Canadians and Panamanians, I just heard of a guy just recently who has a business, and all he does, talk about having a niche business, this is great. All he does is work with Canadians to relocate to Panama. Perfect. That's all he does. He only works with Canadians and he only relocates people to Panama. That's it. No other two countries. He's niched. It's great. And he has plenty of business, even though lots of people are moving to Canada. People as in third worlders. Right. Now, I could also touch on this. I don't want to get political. I try not to do that, but I will touch on this. All I'm going to say is this, and what I'm about to say is not my opinion, this is fact. There is a big difference between having massive amounts of Westerners moving to your Western nation than having a massive amounts of third worlders moving to your Western nation. Westerners moving to your Western nation are not going to put a drag on the welfare system. Generally speaking, yes, there are exceptions. But if you take in millions upon millions of third worlders into your Western nation, it will produce a drag on your welfare state, on your schools, on your free, quote unquote, free government hospitals. Right, Europe? That's how this works. With exceptions, there are always exceptions. The exception proves the rule. So when you say, but all these people are moving to these nations you say are collapsing, so they can't be collapsing, you are literally stating one of the reasons why they are collapsing. Now, don't get political on me. I am not a Republican. I am not a right-winger. I think Donald Trump was one of the worst presidents in modern U.S. history. I am not a right-winger. I am a minarchist libertarian. I am pro-immigration. I'm actually for open borders. Borders, yes, that are defended by the military, but anyone can walk across whenever they want. However, two things. Number one, and I've talked about this in my blogs. Number one, you can't invade other countries. That creates things like terrorists who want to come into your country and blow people up. So you can't bomb other countries for no reason. United States, UK, you can't do that, okay? That's parameter number one. Parameter number two, anyone is allowed in your country, unlimited free immigration, just come on in, but no immigrants get 1 penny of government welfare or government services. Not 1 penny. They have to get a job, they have to work, and if they don't work, they will either starve and die or they need to leave. By the way, that's how Dubai works. My country where I live, Dubai, if you come to Dubai as a foreigner, you better fucking work. And if you don't work, there is no welfare state for foreigners here, and 91% of people here are foreigners, so it's the vast majority of the people live here. There is no welfare state for those people, so you either starve and die or you fucking leave and go home. When you have those two things in place, now you can have all the immigrants you want. I think immigration is great if they come to work and improve your economy. If you have massive amounts of immigrants who move in and say, okay, give me a bunch of free stuff, guess what that's going to do to your economy? Guess what that's going to do to your tax rates? Guess what that's going to do to your hospitals, your schools, your big government welfare programs, and so on. It's going to cause problems for all these things. So the beautiful and hilarious irony, and no, this is not a right-wing thing. I just told you I'm not a right-winger. I'm pro-immigration. I'm giving you the facts. So the beautiful, hilarious irony of people making this objection, well, everyone wants to move there. Oh yeah, it's collapsing. Everyone wants to move there. Are stating the reason in the question, one of the reasons anyway, why it's collapsing. Particularly in Europe, although the US has certainly felt some of these effects as well, okay? So that's how you can have a collapsing Western nation that is fucked, that's gonna collapse in your lifetime, it's going down, it's gonna die, but yet millions of people all over the world in third world countries still want to move there because it's less bad. That's how this works. I will see you next week. In the next podcast, have fun. Bye.